Thanks for joining us for our July 24th webinar. We are very excited to be welcoming Lenny Houweling to discuss lean on the smaller and specialty contractor side. There's a lot of misconceptions out there in the industry that lean is kind of meant, it's a corporate term, it's meant for the big construction companies out there. So Lenny, being somebody who's worked with a lot of background in automotive and has now shifted into the construction industry, he's kind of here to dispel some of those myths and show the value that lean can bring for smaller contractors. So we'll just give everybody a couple of minutes to get on to the call. Just a reminder as well that this session is being recorded. If you'd like to see any of our past webinars, we have them on our website, nialley.com/events, and we've also put all of the webinars into a YouTube playlist. So if you just visit our YouTube channel, you can find all the past episodes there. We will have the recording for this webinar up and live probably later today or early tomorrow. So if you couldn't make it live or you want to go back and watch it, we'll have it available. I did want to put out a save the date for our next webinar, which will be August 21st. Just getting the registration link finalized. We should have that out later this week or early next week. This one, we are welcoming Ian Gray. And if you follow Ian at all on LinkedIn or on social media, he is a huge proponent of mental health and safety in construction. So our conversation is going to be all about safety drift and how even teams that are full of experts, you apply enough stress, you apply enough things happening on the job site, safety incidents can happen even to the best. And there's just so much importance around making sure you have a healthy work environment for everybody. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Ian, and we hope you can join us on August 21st. We'll have the link up for this session shortly. And then just some other upcoming events. Obviously, we have LCI Congress around the corner. That's the big one for the lean construction community happening in Arlington, Texas. They're also putting on a great marketplace series. This is new for the Lean Construction Institute. Our session is going to be on September 9th, but I encourage anybody who's looking into different tools and technologies for lean construction, different approaches that are out there. They're running this session, I believe, from August 23rd all the way to September 9th. And every day there's going to be different tech vendors, consultants, folks coming on to talk about different offerings that are available out there if you're looking for tools or technology oriented towards lean construction. So highly recommend checking that out. And then there's a variety of other events happening this fall. So if you're out and about in the industry, we highly encourage you to come say hi to us. Maybe we'll see you out at some of these events. And stay tuned again to our event page for more exciting things that are on the horizon and hope to see you out and about. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Alan, who will be interviewing Lenny today as we talk about lean for smaller contractors. So welcome, Lenny, and welcome, Alan.
Thanks a lot, Laura. So Alan Boyque, I'm one of the co-founders of Nialley, and very lucky to be able to talk to interesting people in the field. And so today we're talking to Lenny. And so just to get us rolling, Lenny, why don't you talk about, it sounds like, you have automotive industry. Why don't you take us through how you got to today, construction, lean, Kaizen, and then we'll launch into the topic.
You bet. And good morning. Thanks for having me today. Yeah, real quick background. I grew up on a farm, southern Alberta. That was going to be my goal. I was gonna farm and raise some cattle. Ended up getting into auto body as a second trade. I think mostly because farmers wreck a lot of things, and moved my way to Calgary to finish my schooling. That's when I met the girl, which then wrecked my life. I never left the city. I stayed in, yeah, it was all good. Married her, stayed in the city, started working for a really progressive collision repair company in Calgary. And in 2005, worked my way from technician all the way up to basically the boss's right-hand man. 2005, we switched to this thing called Lean. I'd never really heard about it. In organization always made sense to us, but this continuous improvement thinking and the embracing Kaizen approach, just a self-directed workforce, was such an amazing new thing to learn. So for 11 years, got to just really learn how to implement this at a small level and scale up. 2014, we had 4 of the most efficient collision repair centers, I would say, in at least Canada. And I was pushing the boss to grow it bigger. He was 64. He said, I'm good. So he sold out. I took the leap in 2016 But I started getting phone calls from people saying, hey, if you're available, would you come spend just a little bit of time with me? I know you'll see things. I think we got a good thing going. We got a good crew. But I just can't seem to get to the next level or out of the rut we're in. So that taught me that it was okay to build a business that now helps every business apply this thinking, this ability to empower your people, create some buy-in, let them challenge the status quo. We haven't looked back since we started, and our focus stays with mostly sub 100 companies, maybe even sub 50 employee companies. I'm not sure why. I mean, my heart is with the small business owner. I love working with them. I mean, that's how I grew up. That's how I learned all this. I worked in the dirt. I worked in all the positions. And then to the construction note, was while we were building new facilities in our collision business, we saw a lot of the waste that can come from building new facilities and multiple trades being brought in, even by one contractor. As efficient as they were, there was a lot of inefficiencies. So it always intrigued me. I actually had a post-it note on my billboard for years called Lean Construction. Someday I'm going to get into that. And lo and behold, a body shop owner has somebody who's related to somebody in manufacturing, has somebody who's related that's in construction. And so about 2 years ago is when we really saw the request or demand to get in help in construction. And here we are.
Right on. Well, it sounds like you're going to have a lot of boots on the ground stories for us. But before we get into that, Lenny, why don't we? I call them Toyota words, Toyota lean words. Like Gemba and Kaizen is one of them to me. Can you just demystify that one for us and just give us sort of the root definition of what is meant by Kaizen?
Yeah, you bet. So Kaizen simply put is two Japanese words, change and good. I'm not sure if that means change is good or for the good. Change doesn't necessarily feel good, but it's required. We all know that. And it's uncomfortable. In fact, if you're doing it right, it should be uncomfortable. It just shouldn't be hard. So that's where the Kaizen approach, which is really getting down to the level with your people, understanding that they all get out of bed each day to come work for you. They could go work anywhere, but they work for your company. Let's just spend some time with them, creating some awareness. Nobody likes wasting time. We meet the odd business owner that thinks their people are wasting time or that they don't have good people. But most owners, most people are good and they mean well. They do their best to start the day right. Next thing you know is you got a flat wheelbarrow tire, and everyone's who's pushed a flat wheelbarrow tire full of concrete knows the the damaging effects on the day with that. So talking to those people who otherwise could, help contribute to proper tool maintenance, job site organization, proper planning. Kaizen is absolutely a simple way of just approaching your people and getting their feedback, their input.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I have heard it said change for the better, as you say. Change is not easy. One of the things you mentioned here is, you have a penchant for working with smaller companies. I assume they have unique challenges compared to, say, a larger company that have coaches and departments, for running internal processes. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, the smaller construction business challenges?
Yeah, well, interesting. The stats on that is less than 3% are over 100 employee. So 97% of the industry
Wow.
are under 100 employee companies, and the good portion, probably 80% of those are under 20. These are companies that were either started by somebody who maybe was a framer, an electrician, and got tired of the day-to-day, maybe working for the man and figured, hey, I can do this on my own. Started a business, but didn't realize it came with all the other stuff. It's one thing to frame a house, but then to have to come home and maybe get a dinner in you before you go to getting sales or closing invoices. So That we also see a lot of succession, meaning kids taking over the business from their parents and growing it. And so really the two biggest challenges I see are either companies that are struggling profit-wise or staying on top of the billing, the paperwork, and also growing so fast it's hard to keep up. So internally, I would say communication. It might be an easy word to choose, but often it's the boss is out there working with the people in these smaller organizations and doing their best to prep the day, and then problems start arising and they go from fire prevention to firefighting. Externally, I would say in a smaller, excuse me, a smaller company would be that you're at the mercy of other trades as well, and perhaps a contractor. All good intention, I'm sure. Everybody wants to come in and do a good job in a short amount of time, but show up to the job site and they're not ready for you. That's a killer. That's hard to absorb as a small company. You could lose a day or two just by having somebody else not ready for you.
So, so we understand some of the, problems and challenges. Do you have any poignant examples, maybe favorite stories of all the things you just talked about and how those things got turned around? Maybe how you helped them or they helped themselves. I don't know if you teach them how to fish or, you just say, do it like this and here's the thing, and they go along. Tell us a couple of your favorite tales, success or failure, both things where things just didn't work. They couldn't get better.
No, I definitely have one that has both failure and success in it.
Okay, good.
Back to your comment though on, again, how we take our approaches. We don't consult, we coach. We're not going to go into a business and start with change. We're going to just meet people where they're at. In this case, it's a client out in Nova Scotia that had called. It was a Monday morning. We were in session with another client. He says, "Can I talk to you?" So he calls me up, quite frustrated. He goes, "We've had a lot of rain over the weekend. We have this kind of ring hole dug for us to put in a manure pit for a dairy barn, and
oh my!
I told somebody to dig a trench out the back. That it's going to rain. And if we don't dig a trench, it's going to flood. So I can actually share you some photos.
Oh, good.
Because I asked him to text me what he was up against. And in this case, this is what the job site looked like when he showed up Monday morning.
So it's a good thing we can't smell this.
Well, it's not quite ready.
Oh, there's no manure
the byproduct.
yet.
Yeah, no, this is just red dirt, Nova Scotia.
Right.
Imagine your crew standing on the edge of this abyss, looking at a pool of water. Boss man was there early, making sure everything's ready to go. Nobody dug that trench in the back, so he was in the hi-ho digging a hole and watching the water drain out. And he had to sit there and think hard about what's going to happen for the week. So that's when he called me. So after talking with him for a little bit, he said this is a 4.5-day job. We got concrete booked for Friday morning, 6 a.m. We're going to lose a day just today. We will not be into this pit until tomorrow. So, again, from any sort of angle, it didn't matter. This was a mess. So while the water is draining, I just said, look, why don't you walk me through the things that need to happen on this job site prior to concrete showing up Friday morning? Because rescheduling concrete just wasn't an option. It was hard enough to get it booked for that time. And he goes, well, we gotta, drain the water now, let it dry. We gotta lay kind of a subfooting with some rebar, and then we gotta lay a pad down on this. And as he's talking, I realized that to me it sounded quite simple. To him, it was a big undertaking. But what he ended up doing was, as he talked, I just typed out. But we did it in reverse, i.e. the pole planning approach. I just had him walk us back from Friday morning, what has to happen Friday morning in order to be ready for the trucks. He said, well, obviously the pumper truck has to be set up, and of course I need my crew there early. And then we talked about Thursday, and, so to speak, the day before. All the steps he talked about, I put in order, and we ended up coming with this plan that, to me, again, seemed a lot shorter than 4.5 days. I said, it seems to me that you've only really got about 2.5 days of work. He goes, well, you don't understand. I got people that got to go into the city or into the valley and do other jobs. Like, he was quite frustrated, and I sense he was even getting frustrated with me by challenging his schedule.
Right.
All I said was, take what I'm going to send you, make sure it makes sense to you, and just sit with your crew for a moment. Take 30 minutes, put it in front of them. Do expect that they're going to challenge you if you're missing something or something's not in order, and then get back to me. And he did that. He texted me on Tuesday afternoon, so my afternoon, his evening, and he goes, "We've got the gravel in and the forms down." He says, "I can't believe how much we got done in one day." I said, "Well, let's keep going. What's planned for tomorrow?" He goes, "Well, obviously we're going to pour the footing." And he says, "The way this is looking, we should have no problem." I said, "So what changed?" He goes, "Well, what's interesting, when I put the plan in front of my people, they wanted to pour on Wednesday. They wanted to know if they could get the truck earlier there. They had all kinds of ideas on how to get back on track." And so as they proceeded, this was Friday afternoon, pouring the actual pad. The debrief I had with him was that every morning they had a quick huddle, just 5-10 minutes to talk about the job site, the task for the day. The big aha moment, I think, for him was on the Wednesday afternoon. They were ready to pour. This job site sat ready for a full day before the concrete showed up. So, I mean, again, we can't control weather, and perhaps it may have rained again, which it didn't, but it bothered him to think that he had a 4.5 day schedule in his mind when he actually only had a 2.5 day job. So what was really about the success here is that he knew what needed to happen. It wasn't until he laid it out in plain form with his people and got their input, that's where the buy-in, the energy, and of course the execution happened. So
What
really
was the
cool stuff.
key then? I mean, clearly communication and getting the crew to, own it. We'll
Mhm.
just say. But what about? I mean, you sent a list in a way you were visualizing what was in his head,
Yeah.
so that he could articulate it. Like, what are the key elements, I guess, in most of the projects of uh, what's a good word? Turning that corner where they go, aha. Like, what are the key things you've found that make that work?
Um, in a sense, most smaller companies end up taking smaller jobs on or parts of larger jobs to
Hmm.
themselves. It is often the owner or the supers or foreman, depending what size company you are. But in our
Hmm.
case, a lot it falls on the owner to know what to do. They're the ones that have gone out there and quoted it.
Right.
They've priced out all the material. They've perhaps even ordered all the material, and they're getting everything ready. They might even be the one running the hi-ho early hours to get things going. But unfortunately, in his case, it was all in his head. And so Monday morning, after he told somebody to dig a trench to drain this, he knew better. He was doing his best to delegate it. It didn't happen. So now all he sees on a Monday morning is complete failure. But by helping him lay it out, but in a way that allowed his people to challenge it if they needed to, I
Hmm.
think was the main opportunity. It was not pretty. It was point form. I mean, this was again in his head a 4.5 day job, and we just broke it down by days. It was then I assured him that when he put it in front of his people, they're gonna challenge you, and let them challenge you. Let them
Hmm.
question why. Right? You might have a good idea yourself, but they're gonna bring an angle that maybe you're not seeing, and we do all have blind spots. So it was in that moment I think he realized that he just was not. Um, you know, utilizing his people's, skills for thinking, maybe by their hands, but not by their brains. And it took a lot of pressure off of him and span it over the team. So I think that would be
Right.
the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of large GCs, and I have some smaller ones, but the language seems to be different. And there's principles like the last planner system. If
Mhm.
you're implementing lean, you need a system, you need a process. Like, do you speak differently to smaller contractors where some of those big ideas? Do you distill them so it makes sense? Like, how would you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, those words are out there. There's some great reads, great books written by amazing people, probably that have been in some pretty high rank. Again, I could easily write a book on the automotive world and use all of those words.
Right.
That makes sense to me. But bringing it back to anyone who just really wants to be more efficient, profitable, let's add in happy. The ability for somebody to truly get back to enjoying what they do um, is just take the next step. This is a journey, right? You're gonna decide that, hey, I'm gonna implement morning huddles because those are gonna help talk about the day. Let's not just, about what needs to happen. We talk a bit about safety, job site organization. It's gonna feel awkward, that first meeting might go 10 or 20 or even 30 minutes. You want to keep them short and sweet, but it's a journey. Comparable to going to the gym, each day you go, you're not going to see the effects long term is when it starts to happen. So be prepared that your people might not necessarily see the value immediately, but their reaction is not because they don't think it's a good idea or that you're up to some trick. What they're looking for is consistency. And that's ultimately what lean continuous improvement is all about, is to have a process and hope that everything goes perfect. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? We have process so that when things go wrong, we can spot it, either, adjust the process or retrain our people. So something as simple as checking the job trailer, including that wheelbarrow tire, every single morning might seem a little monotonous or pointless. But that's the long game, right? That indeed you're not out at the job site pulling or pushing a wheelbarrow with a flat tire. I mean, that costs a serious amount of money and stress on people. So that reminds me of Extreme Concrete, another great company and a customer of both of us, that indeed spends a lot of effort and time making sure that they keep their job trailers ready, prepped. I'm certain that Laura can add in the link to the video that you guys covered on them. It wasn't just the process and the 5S organization, workplace and job site, but the ability for them to schedule. And so creating some consistency with their crew and then starting to actually talk schedule, especially on these, 3, 5, 10-day jobs. That's when the people bought in.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting insight you make, that you don't have to do this big complex, understand pull planning and all the, rules of engagement, that even just a little bit of scheduling is going to help, like small steps. And the way you talk, change can be painful. Well, if you change a little bit and it's a different, man, that feels good. There's nothing better than getting better. So I think that's, the idea about coaching. And I forgot to mention to the audience, we do have a Q&A section, or the chat. Please put in questions for myself or Lenny in there, and we'll get to those in about 5 or 10 minutes. I always find them really useful. We get more out of it. The other thing that I think we should talk about it, because you've mentioned it a few times, owners sharing with their people, or the people getting satisfaction or being happy. Like, talk about the people side. I've heard that from a couple of guests, the teamwork, employee involvement. Talk about how you approach that, or is it something that just results out of improvement, or do you start with the people?
Yeah, so on the coaching aspect, much like the gym example, I mean, you could go to the gym and start lifting weights, whether you know how to, whether you know exactly the proper way. That's where getting some help to be able to spot what's in your blind spots, helping you engage with your people. Again, most people are good, and I love helping businesses see that they do get out of bed and come work for you for a reason, a paycheck being one of them, but there's other reasons, whether that's the the type of work you do or the passion from ownership, but people follow that. So in this case, what we're able to do in the very first hours of what we run as a boot camp, day one, is just talk with the people about, what's important to you. Why do you come work here? So that's any owner in the right environment could easily ask their people, why do you work for me? You could go work anywhere. And people started sharing things like, well, it helps me support my family. It feels like family here. I love working with my hands. A big one is learning. I mean, we're in an industry much like many that are struggling to find skilled people. We have good people, but they lack skill. I hear a lot of employees saying, I love learning. If only I was given that chance. So we spend some time constructing ways of ensuring that we do basic training. And I'm talking simply as like cleaning that trowel before putting it away, or making sure the truck has all its paperwork in the proper place and your time cards are filled out. So people love learning. And then the other one, which is another great example or a great exercise, is to actually ask openly, and this might take some help from the outside, what are the biggest challenges getting in the way? And giving, the people, it's not a complaint session. When you just give them a chance to list the things that are getting in the way of them being their best. And they'll list things like not knowing what to do, where to get my work, the damaged tools. There's a lot of things that are actually getting in their way that have nothing to do with them. It's just they're in the middle of it. So, two great questions that you can ask your people. And then what those challenges become are now your biggest opportunities. So if you're able to get your people to share the things that are getting in their way, and you remove the negative context, if we were to now start to do some workplace organization, if we were to start to lay out our jobs a little clearer up front and get our people's input, would that make the end result better? The answer is yes.
Yeah, interesting. It's almost like you're in the eye-opening business, eye-opening and insights, walk the site and go, well, if that pile wasn't there, or if those trowels were clean last night, you'd be able to get to work today. Like, is it just getting people to think differently, perhaps, or look at things differently, or have a different mindset? Like, that's what's coming out of this for me. And I think it's applicable to large companies, never mind. I think for smaller companies, you've simplified, some of these notions, but it still applies up the scale, right?
Yeah. Well, the one question we always pose is, why is there never enough time to do it right the first time, but always time to redo it?
I like that a lot. Yeah,
And
that's good.
well, the answer is, if you don't do it right the first time, you will be redoing it. There's a
Mm-hmm.
degree of strain or temptation to just rush into something because it's either taken as common sense or we just don't have time, and you do have time. For this owner with the manure pit they're building, he was quite frustrated with me by Wednesday because he started to see how inefficient they were because they didn't take the time to plan up front. So it didn't take long for him to realize that, as uncomfortable as it is to sit down and do that work up front, much like as uncomfortable it is to go to the gym every single day, the results come afterwards. So yeah, taking the time, again, it's a journey. Take one step. Something catches your eye on the job site. You see that people are walking clear from one end to the other because their materials aren't close by. Spending some time drawing up that job site and just talking with the people before we start. Where would we like to lay things out? Again, on the schedule. Again, on the organization of or use of tools. So there's many little areas. So.
Interesting. It feels I don't know, I've sat in different webinars and people are going, you got to get better, you got to do this, you got to do that. It seems your approach is just very, very calm, and it's very much a learning approach. Is that on purpose, or is that just how you've evolved and that's what works? I guess I'm sort of pointing this at the audience, saying, how would you go about doing this now after listening to Lenny talk? Um, if you could share a few words of advice on that topic of just demeanor, I think is a word I heard you use earlier.
Yeah, learning as a young manager, I got results, but I did not understand how to empower people. And then so in getting introduced to Lean and the Kaizen methodology, at first felt kind of annoying. Like I got to sit and talk with these people. That was young Lenny manager. So to now, it's not about top down telling people what to do. It's bottom up. It's just taking the people that have the knowledge, skills, and ability to, you know, quote and plan these jobs to support the people and say, look, here are the things we need to get done. It does require you to muscle some pride and say, look, I know we're going to see people making mistakes, but those are the mistakes we learn from. And to make a mistake is a good thing. It's required. It's the repeated mistakes that are frustrating. So to be able to just assure every business owner out there that you have good people, they do mean well. The ability for us to spend some time with them saying, look, here's what needs to happen, and then allowing them to offer input. But I can't give you the answer on what it's like to have to sit there at times and watch your people fail and make mistakes. But that's how we all learn. So
yeah, learning moments. Maybe Lean is learning with some letters missing.
yeah,
I'm not sure.
that's a good way
There's
of putting
no
it.
so I have a question. What's the biggest barrier? I mean, we always talk about the um adopting principles. What's the biggest barrier you've seen? And we can be specific to the smaller construction companies where it just damn, it just isn't working. It's like, to hell with it. I'm going back to my old way, whatever.
Mhm. I think a lot of business owners, I myself included, think that they have to have the answer themselves. That they need to know this stuff, whether that's just running a business, let alone applying continuous improvement. When I say communication, I would stress that it's usually the lack of visual communication, the ability for people to see, which then results in people looking for information. And so if that's you as the owner and you're holding all that in your head, or trying your best to get it out to your people, watch what happens when you do. Even just take that next job to the best of your ability, whether piece of paper, post-it notes. Obviously, we see people using tools like Nally for visual scheduling. You put it out in front of your people and ask them for their input. Watch what happens. But that visual communication would be probably one of the biggest barriers. So.
Yeah, it's definitely one of our North Stars. And I think, sometimes you talk to a smaller company and they go, oh, I don't need something, complicated like that. And then, in fact, if you have, sticky notes are not complicated, a digital version, to your point about the extreme contrary, they just started scheduling, just
Yeah.
visualizing and move them along rapidly. And I think that's another key, is for companies out there to do something, visualize something, so everybody has an
Yep.
agreed on focus, and a visual
Yeah.
does that. Because if I say yellow, a yellow circle to you and Laura, you both definitely have a different vision of a yellow circle. But
Totally.
once you visualize it, it becomes clear to everybody. So I think that's one of the things that we like to talk about. Make a common ground for people to stand and meet. So it's good to hear you saying that that's what you see.
It looks like
When
we do
we're
have a question from Mike.
Oh, good.
So he is asking, when you're working on multiple projects and you're having to schedule those prep meetings or those morning huddles, like, how do you get your crews prepared without causing confusion if they're working on multiple projects? So maybe that kind of spills into some of that visual stuff we've just been talking about. But if there's anything there that you kind of advise on, that would be great.
Yeah, I guess that if it's multiple projects, it could be two things. One, you're a large enough company that you're taking on multiple projects, or you could be a small company having to jump between because of whatever reason, just staying busy. Laying out what work you have both coming down the pipe and on the go. Assuming it's more than just you supervising, at least meeting with your supervisors, your project managers, whichever size company you are, perhaps towards the end of the week, talking a bit about how the week went and what's coming next week. And then assigning and saying, look, even if you are not in charge of this project, but you're going to be on that job site with more than just yourself, just make sure you take a moment to talk about the day, right? What's the outcome? What are we wanting to accomplish? How do we want to feel at the end of today when it comes to, organization, production, safety? Those are formats we can all help construct that make sense to the owner and the supervisors. But there's also power in a quick chat at the end of the day, a debrief to talk about what went well. Did we get done what we needed to? And those are great conversations that you can also provide a space for as an owner, to check in with your people, your supervisors, or your lead hands, if you will. And there's technology, right? I mean, in person would be awesome, but we're definitely embracing things like FaceTime. I see a lot of companies utilizing tools like WhatsApp, which have some limitations, but for those morning huddles, it's a great way to just check in and say, okay, here's what we're doing today. But back to the planning. I guess, Alan, to your point on poll planning, it seems a little harder, you know, excessive if you're going to poll plan a 2-day,
There's
driveway on
not
the front
much.
of a
There's not
garage,
much.
or
There's not much to pull, really.
yeah, right. We're
Yeah.
doing an extension on somebody's living room. It's going to take
Mm.
us 4 days. I don't see the reason why we're going to spend 2 hours talking about it.
Yeah.
But that's not that's not actually what's required. Poll planning in essence is laying out all the steps, and the reason doing it in reverse is to actually force you to stop putting buffers, and that can be challenging. But much like the company out in Nova Scotia, that's all we did. We just laid out the steps. So
Yeah. And yes, starting with the end in mind doesn't hurt. I
yeah,
think poll planning has it has a bit of a barrier too, because it's like, well, I don't think that way. In fact, it is just exactly what you've said. Still waiting for some brilliant questions.
I mean, I guess I have a question I could ask you, Lenny, and that is just around in several of your stories, it seems like the aha moment has really been the owner realizing, okay, maybe I was more of the problem than I thought, but
Yep.
sometimes that's not the symptom that companies come and present you with in terms of why they call you and engage you. It's the owner doesn't necessarily think they're the ones that have the issue. They're seeing other issues at their company or at their job site. So maybe what are some of those symptoms that like companies are experiencing, like when they kind of first pick up the phone and they say, hey, Lenny, I need your help. Not even sometimes realizing that they may be the root of the problem, but like what kind of gets them on that journey?
Well, the result of, like you said, all the symptoms. I mean, leaders see a lot of things. It's hard maybe to interpret all of it, but when the job site's not going well or it's falling behind, you got a customer upset, materials are, not there or wrong. There's water in the hole. It's hard to stay calm and say, hey, I need to back off on this. I don't want to live this way. And that's usually when we get the call, is that most owners have done all the heavy lifting to date. They've built the company to the size they are. They've done their best to hold it together. It starts to feel like failure, but it's not actually failure. It's just growth. It's starting to reach a limit where, getting some help, not to change anything, but just to get a perspective that, hey, you actually have everything you need. And so I'll add that in, is there isn't a company we haven't gone into work with didn't already have everything they needed. We didn't make any major shifts. We literally just started with what they have, including their people. And that's what's so cool about Kaizen, and what we get to do is we meet a lot of amazing people. We just create that space to start to talk about it. And yeah, I would say about halfway through our boot camp, or at least our 1 day, it's about midday where the owner's not feeling too good, a little woozy. The people are starting to get excited. And by the afternoon, everybody's back on track because the pressure's now off of one individual or group. The leadership can now take a back seat, if you will, to supporting the people. And if you think about any situation, the story in my own personal life would be Wife was gone. Kids wanted to play video games. I said, go clean your room. Well, 19 minutes later, they came back and this disaster of a room was clean. You can imagine anyone who has kids, how they clean their room, right? They shove things in the closet and they had things under the bedspread. But the look of pride in their face was, look, we got this done. Can we go play? It was in that moment that I realized I've never actually shown them what a clean room looks like in my mind. And so they never would have succeeded. They failed, even when I said clean your room. So it was a little painful. They were frustrated with me too. We took a good couple hours to clean the room and then show them, look, this is what I'm talking about. Do they get it right every time from now? No. We have a picture on the wall of what their clean room looked like to remind them, but we just support them and say, look, our job as parents is to raise you, so our job as owners is to support you. But I need you to be able to do these things too. So I love that story because it's applicable in business and in personal life. So
Yeah, it certainly is. And I'm sure you have memories or examples of, I'll say, an employee or somebody actually waking up and finding out that they could do something they didn't know they could do because they got empowered.
yeah,
Hey, I do know how to clean my room. I do know how to trowel mortar. Like, I don't know, you have any tales on that where like somebody just got lit up because of this new, I'll just say culture, environment?
Mhm. Yeah. The two I would share, one on, in an implementation, holding a boot camp and watching a young gal just come to life on organization, just her passion and taking the tools we taught. We actually do a session on proper 5S and how to actually organize a workspace effectively, efficiently. It just clicked, and this young gal now holds, it's an employee, but holds sessions with the company
Wow.
to teach them internal. So back to the teach how to fish. Job site wise, actual on the job site, I would say that watching a young lad who was pretty much on the chopping block, didn't seem to be cutting it, even at times maybe was showing up late to work, only to realize that he was just not finding any joy. He was known as the grunt, and I'm not gonna discount the fact that I grew up in the school of hard knocks too. You gotta earn your keep, but spending some time with him in between, making sure job site's clean and rebars cut and um, the trucks are washed, is just gave him a chance to actually understand how to lay out a footing, even where the boards get dropped before they get hammered in straight. And yeah, to see him now feel and be accepted by the other workers to say, hey, great job, you laid those boards right where we needed them to. This was the kid first on the job site from there on in, right? He had purpose. And so it was cool to see because, yeah, it is hard to find skilled people. It takes a lot of work to start over when you maybe have somebody retire or lose somebody to, someone down the street. But we all started somewhere. We all
Yeah,
had
it's
somebody who
true.
took us under their wing and started us showing the ropes. And so to just take a deep breath and say, you know what, I'm not gonna be a victim to this. It's hard at times. It's uncomfortable, but we back in the day, we thought too, it was just so hard to find good people and we're losing skill in our industry. We just stopped being victims to it. We weren't actually gaining anything by sticking with that statement. We just realized we got to look somewhere else and do something different. So that's where we started.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, a lot of fulsome lessons here today, and I think we're pretty much at time.
Mhm.
I believe Laura said you're going to be sending out a recording and possibly Lenny's details because it sounds
Mhm.
like an engagement with you would be a great step. So really appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I hope that some people on the call here can take advantage of some of the things you've been talking about. So really great. So thank
Yep.
you.
No, thank
Thank you
you. And
so
we
much,
got a
Lenny.
lot of simple, great resources to share. I mean, there's lots to share. There's lots out there to read about, but reaching out, asking for some help, whether connecting through Nyali or again, thanks Laura to get a link out. Happy to chat. This is our passion. And again, of those small companies, now teaching them how to work together is really interesting. So it's possible, but it's going to take some work. So.
Awesome to talk to you today, Lenny.
Likewise.
I don't know,
Thank you
Laura.
for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Laura, if you want to take us home and we'll end this session.
Yeah, I think that's everything from our end. We'll have the recording out to everyone shortly. And thank you so much, Lenny, for such a great conversation.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
See you later.